Hey everyone! I know that everyone says this, but I cannot believe that we're already halfway done with the year. So in today's video then, I want to go ahead and just update you on all of the planners and journals that I've been using so far this year, and kind of just talk about what has been working, what didn't work, and possibly some brainstorming for my 2026 planner. So I feel like this might be a long one, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. Let's go ahead and start off with this one, as I'm sure this is probably the most anticipated and interesting one out of all of the journals and planners that I've been using so far this year. It is the one that I'm in most often just because I do all of my planning and productivity related stuff in here. For anyone who's unfamiliar, then this is a sterling ink common planner. It is in the caramel color with the white edges. And before I open it up, let's go ahead and talk about kind of the external aspects of it first. Starting with the cover, I've had absolutely no issues with the cover at all. As you can see, this is kind of how the spine and binding is looking at this point in the year. There is a little bit of curvature to it, but it's still been holding up perfectly well. I haven't had any issues with the binding whatsoever. It lays perfectly flat when I open it. Now, I don't consider myself to be someone who pastes in a lot of additional things into my planner, with the exception of stickers in the monthly and weekly spreads. But for the most part, I mainly just write in here, and so I don't feel like there's a crazy amount of bulk that's been added to my planner. Now, this may of course vary depending on how many things you like to paste into your planners, and of course just kind of like the thickness of the things that you paste in, such as stickers, paper, cards, etc. So your experience definitely may vary, but in terms of the way that I've been using my planner, then I just haven't had any issues whatsoever with the binding, and so I've been extremely pleased with that so far. I really don't notice any visible wear or tear with the cover at all. Now, of course, something to note is just the fact that I mainly keep this at home with me. I work from home most of the time, so I don't take this out with me very often. Sometimes I do go into the office to work, so I will bring it with me in a backpack. And I've also brought it with me on some of our short trips and our vacation, so I haven't noticed any issues with the cover, which is wonderful. In terms of the size, this is the first B6 sized planner or journal that I've ever used, and I absolutely love the size of it. It's small and portable enough to where I can easily bring it with me anywhere that I go, and it's honestly just not really even that heavy, even with 6 months of use. It's very lightweight, and I just love how flexible it is, and easily you can flip the pages and find a certain page that you are looking for. But it's also still big enough to fit everything that I need it to, which is just a very perfect size for me, at least in this point in time. This planner also has Tomoe River paper, which this is also the first year that I've ever used a notebook with Tomoe River paper. So unfortunately, I don't have any frame of reference or anything else to compare it to, just because I know that there has been some changes with the Tomoe River paper. So I can't speak on how the paper performs differently or compares to previous years. However, my experience so far with this planner specifically has just been amazing in terms of the paper. I haven't had any issues. I went into it knowing that because it is 52 GSM, likely most of the materials that I would use in it would ghost. However, I really haven't had too many issues with bleed through. There have been circumstances where I would swatch out fountain pen inks inside the planner, and I would either apply a little bit too much or the ink itself would just naturally be pretty runny and wet to where it would unfortunately bleed through. But in terms of journaling and writing in my planner, then I really didn't have any issues with bleed through, never with any of the gel pens that I used, sometimes with the fountain pens, and only for specific inks. So that is something that you might just want to consider if you are wanting to pick something up with Tomoe River paper in it. Now, in terms of the materials or the writing utensils that I used in my planner, for the majority of the first half of the year, then I mainly used my Uniball Signo DX gel pen. This specifically is in the 0.28mm size, so it's a very thin point gel pen, and I have always really loved this gel pen. I never had any issues with it, and it was always extremely reliable. I've used it for years. More recently, I've actually switched over to writing down all of my tasks and events to this Uniball One P gel pen. And this is just slightly bigger in terms of the point. It is a 0.38mm size, but just something about the ink is very, very dark and very pronounced, which I will try to remember to show you when we're flipping through the planner. But it's just been a nice change. It does look a little bolder on the pages in terms of like the letters and whatnot, but I actually don't mind it, and I just love how dark and pigmented the ink has been. So that's been a nice change. Other than that, I've pretty much just stuck with kind of the same materials. I'll use the Sakura Pigma Micron in the 01 size to draw out my work schedule, and then I'll use this Tombow Fudenosuke hard tip to write out like any headers in my monthly spreads or weekly spreads. And then to track my intermittent fasting, then I started the year off by using Tombow dual brush pens to just like highlight the hours that I'm fasting, but more recently then I've swapped over to Mildliners. I think just having like the chisel end has been a little bit easier to just draw out that stroke, which I'll show you in a moment as well. But this is just the current one that I'm using this week. I do like to change it up every week just to kind of add a little bit more interest to the pages. So now that we're done with the writing materials, then I'll quickly just go over kind of the tabs here that I have. Earlier in the year, then I decided to add in these Midori Chiratto index tabs and clips. So I believe these here are the index tabs, and then these are the index clips. And so the difference is just that the tabs here, then they come in a couple of different designs, but these have more of like a permanent adhesive that you just apply onto the page, and if you don't have any plans on removing them or anything, they're a great solution for like permanent bookmarking. And then the clips down here, then these are removable. They are made of like a very thin metal, and you can get them in the copper shade, which is what this is, or you can get them in silver. So I like having the combination of both of them. I've been finding that they work extremely well and just served exactly the purpose that I needed them to serve. These tabs up here, then I don't ever need to move them, and so I was perfectly fine with just permanently placing them there with the adhesive. And then the metal ones down here, then I do move them at different times throughout the year, and that has just been working out perfectly as well. Earlier in the year, then I did temporarily have a separate clear plastic cover to just protect the cover of this notebook, but I've since taken it off. I did talk about this in a previous video, but it was just sticking onto this faux leather cover a little bit too much to where it wouldn't properly open and lay flat the way that I would want it to. So that's why I ended up taking it off, and since then I haven't had any issues getting like the actual cover itself like scuffed up or experience any like wear and tear, so I've been perfectly fine with just not having a separate cover on this as well. Alright, so now that that is all out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the more exciting stuff, which is the stuff on the inside. So I'll kind of just do like a flip through and kind of give like a brief review on all of the different spreads that I've either set up or the way that I've been using them. So the first one being this spread here. So if you also have a common planner, or if you are unfamiliar, then the common planner typically comes with this blank spread that just has graph paper on it, and you can use it for whatever you like. This is what I decided to do with mine this year. So I just divided this page in half, did a master bills list. I also have a future plans list down here, and then a when did I last list. So as you can see, I haven't really had a reason to come back to this page too often. I haven't done anything different with the master bills list. I don't think anything has necessarily changed since I set it up. And then for the future plans, I still have no plans for 2026. This is more so for like future appointments. And then in terms of the when did I last page, then I do try to come back to this one a little bit more often. I have been trying to keep these updated, and I think that I've been doing a pretty good job. The only thing is I definitely did not need this entire page dedicated to this. So just hypothetically speaking, if I were to get a common planner for next year, I definitely will not do this spread again. I don't really find it to be that necessary, so I think in the future then I'll just forego this spread and use it for something else. And then flipping over to this goal breakdown page, I've expressed this a couple of times in previous videos already that I just never come back to this page. So again, hypothetically, if I were to get another common planner for next year, I think I'm just going to repurpose this page for something else, just because unfortunately I haven't been finding that much value in this page the way that I've set it up at least. So I would likely repurpose this for something else as well. And then here we have the yearly tracker, which I've also mentioned this in probably my last update, but I have had absolutely no problem with this spread at all. I really love it actually. It's just very simple and straight to the point. And essentially the way that I've just been using it is to track my periods, which you can see kind of along the side here. I basically just go in with a dark red Tombow and highlight the days that I'm on my period. And then for the top line, then I just write down what workout I did that day, and then below that, then I just write down my weight. And it's just been really nice every day to fill it out in just a few seconds and to have all of this information at a glance. Next we have the quarterly pages. So I did talk about this one recently as well, but I did try it for the full first quarter, where I would write down like priorities for the entire first quarter, and then I would also go in and write down priorities for each month. And then for the vertical monthly side over here, then I just used it as a habit tracker. And so just to fast forward a little bit to quarter two, as you can see, I did start using the monthly sections as kind of like a media tracker, where I would just write down like the headers of the specific things that I wanted to keep track of, and then I would just fill it in underneath with the list of things that I did end up consuming. And so far I've just been enjoying it so much more. It's been a lot more exciting for me to come back to this page and actually engage with it and write down or keep it up to date with things that I've either been listening to, watching, reading, etc. And then in terms of the vertical monthlies as my habit trackers, I've really been enjoying this as well. It's just an easy and quick way to keep track of different aspects in my life. It's also been really motivating to try and complete as many as I can in a day, just so that at the end of the month then I can come back with a marker and then just highlight the habits that I was successfully able to complete every single day of that month. So that's basically how I've been using my quarterly pages as well as these monthly vertical layouts. And then moving on to the monthly layouts, then I have essentially just been keeping these about the same as my last update. I just add a little bit of decoration here and there just to kind of give every month some sort of a theme. And then I just write down all of the things that are going on that month. I personally need to have a calendar format in my planners. That's just kind of how my brain works and how my brain like kind of sees time. And it's just really helpful and allows me to write down all of the different things going on that month, whether it be events, birthdays, bills, appointments, videos that are coming out. So it's just been great. I've had absolutely no problems with it whatsoever. In terms of like the sidebar over here, then I just use like this side over here as like an expense tracker or maybe like additional reminders for myself. And then down here, then I just write down like a to-do. And so that was kind of what I was getting at, where I didn't find it necessary to write down like monthly priorities in like the quarterly pages. So how I would do it like for April here, I didn't find it necessary to do it here and then to also kind of like write down the same things each month. I was just finding it to be redundant, and so that's why I wanted to kind of like repurpose the quarterly pages, and I feel like that's just been working out very well. But yeah, personally, I just really love being able to flip through the different months and kind of just see what has happened throughout the months, see the different decorations, kind of corresponding to the seasons changing and whatnot. So I just really love the way that it looks. So that's basically it for the monthly spreads. I haven't had any issues with them. I love me a good calendar layout, so I will definitely use it. And that's essentially just all that I really need for a good monthly spread. Now moving on to the weekly spreads. These are probably the most interesting parts of the planner for me personally, just because they have evolved and changed so much. And they were definitely a learning curve for me, just because I was never really the type that liked vertical weekly spreads. In the past, then I mainly preferred like the horizontal layouts. And so I knew going into this planner that it would be an interesting change for me. But let's go ahead and talk about basically the things that have stayed the same. So starting off with what's like at the top, that's where I would write down like important events, birthdays, bills that are coming out, or important tasks that I need to get done that day. And then I'll go ahead and take that Sakura Pigma Micron in the 01 size, block off my work schedule in this bracket here, and then I'll also do the same thing and just block off time for like social obligations. And then these strips of color here, then that is what I was referring to earlier with my intermittent fasting. Basically, these strips would just indicate like the hours that I was fasting, and then the blank spaces in between would be when I was eating or consuming stuff. And then I'll go ahead and write down tasks or kind of like important things that happen throughout the day in chronological order. And that's how I started filling out my weekly spreads. And essentially I still keep up with that same format. I also still like to do a lot of my decorating at the bottom here just because I'm not usually up later than like 10 or 11 p.m. on most nights, and so I don't really have too many plans during those hours, but then I also have a really bad problem of just leaving things blank. So that's where I go in with all my decorations. Sometimes I'll go in with stickers or washi tape, sometimes I'll draw stuff in with like colored pencils, other times I'll hand letter like a lyric, and then sometimes I'll also paint something. And then, as I've mentioned before too, I didn't really know what to do with the sidebar here at first when I was just getting introduced to this weekly layout, but eventually I did find a use for it. But basically for these first few weeks, then I was essentially trying to figure out what was sustainable. As I've talked about before, and I'm sure you can see, I went like really hard on making stickers for basically every single thing that I did, and although I really love looking back at it and just seeing like different personalized stickers that I would make, it was so time consuming to do that every single day, multiple times a day, and I just knew that it was not sustainable. It was just something that I would not be able to do for an extended period of time. But I'm really glad that I at least gave it a try just to see if I could do it, and it did last for a few weeks, but then eventually it just kind of got to be a little bit too much, and so then I just had to reassess, which I am a lot more happy with how it is now. And then here in week 3, then this is where I started introducing the to-do list. So this is essentially what I would use my sidebar for. Again, still just writing down kind of like the more important things every single day, decorating the bottom, adding in stickers wherever, and just kind of logging everything chronologically. It was this first week in February where, as you can see, I was definitely starting to feel very burnt out from the sticker making. And so I basically just stopped using stickers altogether and just wrote down everything that I did. And personally, I don't mind like the very clean look either. However, because I am quite the visual person, I did eventually reintroduce stickers once again. I took a couple of weeks off and just focused on writing down all of my tasks. I did start reintroducing stickers once again, but didn't do it for every single thing. I kind of just wanted to sprinkle them in wherever I thought it was appropriate or wanted to remember something specific. I went in with a fountain pen to write out my workouts for the week, just so that it would be a little bit bolder and stand out to me when I would need to look at it to remember what workout I needed to do that day. I was also just getting a little bit more comfortable doodling right onto the page rather than always reaching into my sticker book and placing down specific stickers. And then for the next few weeks, then I started writing out my workouts in a colored gel pen. Again, just to help it pop to my eyes whenever I would look to see what I needed to do that day. This fourth week of April, then we started off the week being out of town. We were out for a concert, which was very exciting. And so as you can see, for these first 2 days, then they're a little bit bare. They're not as tight and compact as a lot of other days are, which I think is perfectly fine. Sometimes it's just nice to allow like the days to breathe, especially if you are out about, like on vacation, and you don't have as many things to do or to worry about. This bottom part down here, then I decided to write out the set list, kind of to introduce like some more memory keeping into this planner here so that I can remember the songs that were played that night. So yeah, I've pretty much just been using my weekly spreads about the same as when I started, just not as many stickers, not as many decorations, and just focusing more on the functionality and productivity side of things. I would write down like different tasks throughout the day. Like for the weekends, if I have a lot of things that I need to do or remember, then I would just write down a list. This week was actually the week of vacation, or the week that my husband and I went to go visit my brother. And as you can see, it definitely looks quite a bit different compared to my normal weeks. I would mainly write down like the big plans that we had going on that day. I would basically just fill up the space and journal about like the different things that happened that day. And I just really love the way that it turned out. It's just a nice change compared to the more structured checking off of task lists and whatnot. And then of course, we get back into the swing of things with our usual routines. This was when I decided to just print off some stickers from my computer, and I'm kind of just testing it out. So yeah, that is basically it for my weekly spreads. Overall, they have been working out beautifully. I haven't really had any issues, and when I did have issues, then I was easily able to find a way to just fix it or correct it, so I don't have any complaints about the weekly spreads. I've just been enjoying the weekly spreads so much. They've been really easy to use, really easy to work with, and I guess I'm not sure how well you're able to see it, but just going back to why I changed my gel pens earlier, for the Pickup RX or like the ovulation test here or submit timesheet, that was using the Uniball Signo DX, but kind of everything else around it is using the Uniball One P, and I'm not sure how well you can tell, but it just looks a lot darker and more pigmented, and it stands out a lot better. So I've just been really enjoying that look a lot more, and so that's why I decided to just switch to the Uniball One P for now. Alright, so basically the final part of the Common Planner update would be the blank notebook pages in the back. So for the Common Planner, then you essentially get like this first portion of the notebook as the actual planner or productivity part of things, and then the rest are all blank graph pages that you can do absolutely whatever you like with. So in the back here, then you get 367 blank pages. I've mainly been using it as a journal since I did not have a separate journal that I was using to do long form journaling, that is. And I really just wanted to test out the Tombow River paper in here and just get a grasp on how well I was able to journal in it. For the most part in the beginning, then I mainly used gel pens to write down all my journal entries. I did paste in a couple of stickers or would tip in some cards that I would get like in the mail. I even did some brainstorming of like how I could potentially use different layouts in different planners or in this planner even. And overall, my experience having this blank like notebook in the back essentially has just been wonderful. I really love being able to plan out everything in the front of the planner and then just be able to turn it to the back and start journaling about whatever might be on my mind, or if I have kind of like some random idea that I want to write down on paper or brainstorm about, then I have that luxury to do so as well. Eventually then I did finally start playing around with fountain pens and fountain pen inks. And so then I basically switched my journaling over to fountain pens, which was definitely a learning curve in the beginning. This was where I was mentioning that there was some bleed through. But yeah, I just really loved journaling on these pages. I just love how it feels and being able to feel like you're writing and the texture of it on the back side. I really don't mind the ghosting, and if there's no bleed through, then that's even better. But like I mentioned earlier, then there was very minimal bleed through, so that was very great to see. But yeah, I'm sure as you can see, I do like to journal a lot. Most of the time it's not very anything important, but I just really enjoy the feeling of writing and the feeling of getting all of the words and letters down, even if it's not really anything important or life-changing. Then I think I just really enjoy the feeling of writing and the feeling of finishing a page with my writing on it. As you can see, there are definitely some journal entries where I decorated them a little bit more. And then there are other journal entries where I just don't add any additional decorations or stickers to it whatsoever. And it's just really nice, you know, like whatever I'm in the mood for. If I feel like decorating, then I will. If I just feel like writing, then I will do that as well. So it's just nice being able to have that flexibility with your pages in the back here. I really liked when it got to the point where I started dividing up my journal entries into like these columns. I just thought that that added like a very interesting look to the journal entries and just made it look a little bit more clean. And even though there wasn't like additional like decorations or like stickers or anything added, then it still just looked a little bit more presentable, if you will. For some of these pages, then I was essentially trying to mimic the fountain pen ink color to the decorations that I was adding down, like the stickers. And so we are basically coming to the end of the pages that I've at least used up. Here's actually where I've been doing like the brainstorming for this video. And so at this point, I really only have 90 pages left of these blank pages. And so if you may have seen from a few videos ago, then I did finally move my long form journaling into this journal here. So I do have a completely separate journal now to do my long form journaling, just because I am quickly running out of pages in my comment planner here. I only have 90 pages left, and we are just barely halfway done with the year. So I think I'm just going to reserve these 90 pages for additional like brainstorming for content, or if there are any layouts that I want to try out for like my planners and whatnot, then I can go ahead and draw them in here, or if I need to take notes on anything, just stuff like that. So I am wanting to just be a little bit more conservative with these last pages in my comment planner, but I will definitely use it up by the end of the year, because I am such a completionist and I just need to have like basically all the pages filled up before I can consider it finished. So yeah, that is basically my half-year update / review of my Sterling Ink Common Planner. Overall, I have just been loving this thing. I really have absolutely no complaints. It's just been a dream to use and work with. I just love it so much, and it truly is like a very big contender for my planner for next year. Now, there is something that I am potentially considering for next year that I will likely do a future video about, just kind of talking more about what I'm looking for my 2026 planner. So make sure to stay tuned for that, because I would love to hear kind of like your thoughts and what your plans are for next year as well. It's crazy that we're already getting to that point that we're even considering our planners for next year or thinking about it, but that's kind of what we do, is we like to plan. So yeah, that's basically it for my Sterling Ink Common Planner. I'll go ahead and just update you quickly on the other journals so far this year, in case you are also curious about those. Next, I have this A6 Hobonichi HON. So just in case you're unfamiliar with it, then the HON just essentially refers to the Hobonichi cousin or the Hobonichi original that has these hard covers with designs on them. And this is also my first A6 planner / journal that I've ever used, and I just really love this little size. It also has Tombow river paper in it, same as the Sterling Ink Common Planner. It comes with 2 ribbon bookmarks, which I've personally been really enjoying. I really love having bookmarks in my planners. I know a lot of people really don't like them, and so they end up cutting them off, but I find them very useful, and so I definitely like to keep them and just mark specific pages in my book. And then I also have 2 of these Midori Chiratto index clips that I keep in here as well. And yeah, I've just been really loving this thing a lot. I really love the cover and the design on it. I do wish that I would have gotten one of those clear covers to put on here and to protect the cover, because as you can see, there's kind of like some scratching or like some indentations on the back here, unfortunately. And I feel like at this point, if I were to get one, then it would kind of just not really even serve a purpose anymore. So it is what it is. I think if I were to get another one of these in the future, then I would definitely buy it at the same time and just cover it immediately from the get-go. But aside from that, it's been holding up pretty well. I haven't had any issues with the binding either, and it's lovely because it just lays flat as well. Let's go ahead and just start off with this first bookmark here. This just opens up to the vertical monthly spreads here, and I've been using these spreads kind of like for a 1 line a day. Basically, it just takes a few seconds to fill in every day, and I've just been really enjoying it. Now, when I first started off writing these, then I was using this Uniball Jetstream ballpoint pen, but because I made the switch to the Uniball One P in my Sterling Ink Common Planner, then I also switched over and just started using the same gel pen just for convenience. And as you can see, it just looks a lot darker and more vivid compared to the ballpoint, so I've just been really enjoying that look. Now, moving on, then we have the monthly calendars here, and this has been something that I've been doing for the past several years, which is drawing a daily doodle. And so I essentially just draw like kind of a moment or a snippet from each day, just to kind of like represent that day. And these are by far my favorite spreads to look at throughout the year and at the end of each year. I just really love being able to see all the different moments and just see how our lives evolve throughout time. It's just really cute, and depending on the doodle, then it will perhaps just take like a couple minutes to do, or sometimes it can take like up to 10 minutes depending on how complex it might be. I do like to try and decorate it similarly to the way that I would decorate my monthly calendars in my Sterling Ink Common Planner, just kind of along the same theme. But yeah, these have been working out very well for me in terms of the monthly calendars. It works so well with these daily doodles because I always drew them in kind of like this calendar format anyway when I used to bullet journal. So I just thought it was the perfect use of these calendar layouts in this planner, since I already use the calendars in my common planner to do like the planning or productive part of my life. And so this Hobonichi HON essentially serves as more of like the memory keeping part of my life. So yeah, I don't have any complaints with the monthly spreads. I've just been loving them so much. I love being able to add a little bit of decoration and then just completely fill in each and every day with different doodles from my life. And then in terms of the materials that I use for my daily doodles, then I just go in with my Tombow Monograph mechanical pencil first, just to sketch in my doodles, and then I'll go in with the Sakura Pigma Micron in the 005 size, which is a very thin fine liner, just to make sure that I get all the details and fine lines that I want in my doodles. And then moving on, we have these daily pages, and so for some of the Hobonichi planners, it has this blank monthly page just preceding the daily pages for that month. And so what I've been using it for is to just come back at the end of every month and paste in some pictures that I took within that month, and then also just kind of like draw out some monthly favorites. And then for the dailies, if you were to use this as a planner, then you can come in here and write down all of your different tasks and events for every single day. But because I do all of my planning in my Sterling Ink Common Planner, then what I decided to do is to just do kind of like a journal entry every single day. And so for these pages, then I really don't add any like decorations or stickers or anything. It's just all writing. I go in and just write down the time that I'm sitting down to start journaling. And usually these just take about 10 minutes a day. I find that with this A6 size, then it's just very perfect to write down something quickly and just have it not be like a huge chore or anything. But then it's also enough space to get down like a few thoughts in. So it's just been really nice, and something I've also been trying to do for every single month, just because these have like colored pages, is to try and match the ink or the pen that I'm using to the color of the month. So for January, then it was kind of like this soft rosy brown color. And then for February, as you can see, I switched over to this deeper like sepia or umber color. And then again, I just have some pictures that I pasted in with some favorites. Now, I do try to journal every single day, and I'd say for the most part I am successful with that, but there have been a few times where I am either like just way too busy or I don't have enough energy to do it, and so then I just end up filling it in the next time that I'm able to sit down and journal. But yeah, I've just been really loving this planner so far. It's just such a cute and convenient size to bring along with you. And I think if you were to use this as a planner, then it would just be very perfect to slip in a bag and bring it with you on the go. I've been really enjoying journaling every single day. It's just been really nice being able to sit down for a few minutes and just kind of write about what I've done so far in the day or anything that might be on my mind. So again, kind of similar to the journal entries that I wrote in my common planner. They're not like super like thoughtful or like life-changing or anything, but it's just a nice way to get something off my mind if I am thinking about something, or splatter something onto the page and just hopefully leave it there and not linger on it too much as far as thinking about it. And then something that I also started doing was just adding like this little star icon just along the timeline here. And that just also like indicates the same time that I am sitting down to write. And it's just something that I randomly thought of to start doing, and it's just kind of nice seeing like the different times like visually when I am sitting down to write. And I think this might be the only time I actually like doodled something on one of these pages, just because I was finally able to go and see one of my favorite musicians, and I was just so freaking excited. So I had to draw like that adorable little doodle of his. But yeah, like I mentioned, this planner is just solely for memory keeping, really nothing planner related or productive really. It's just a little space for me to be a little creative, but also just get some thoughts down. And even if I don't have that much time during the day, if it is a really busy day, then it just allows me to take a step back and just kind of take a breather, reflect on the day, and wind down a little bit. And again, I haven't had any issues with this Tombow River paper whatsoever. Again, I don't really have anything else to compare it to aside from the Sterling Ink Common Planner, but they've both just been wonderful. I haven't had any problems with either of them. I really haven't had too much bleed through. There was that point in April where I accidentally like applied a little bit too much ink on this side, and then it just kind of bled through a little bit, but not onto the next page, which was actually quite impressive. So I really don't mind that at all. But yeah, I still have to write out my journal entry for today, which I will do later. But yeah, that has basically been how I've been using my daily pages. I just really love being able to flip through it and just see pages full of writing in somewhat of a close color to the month. So they're not perfect, but they are definitely close, which I am perfectly happy about. And then the last part of this planner is indicated with this index clip. And this is something that I also carried on from my bullet journal days as well, is to just kind of do like a monthly recap at the back of my planner. So because this is my memory keeping planner, then I thought that it would be appropriate to have it in this one as well. Plus you get like a few blank pages in the back. I think it might be like 15 or 16. So I figured that it would be like the perfect use for these back pages. But yeah, at the end of every month, I'll just use my HP Sprocket, print out a picture off my phone, and then I would just kind of journal about different things that happened throughout the month. So yeah, that is all that I have so far. When I'm recording this, then June isn't quite over yet, so that's why I don't have any June stuff filled out. So yeah, that is my half-year update for my Hobonichi HON. Bottom line is, I freaking love this thing. I really have no complaints, and I'm just kind of torn. Like, I don't know if I want to use this as my planner for next year or what I'm going to do, because I just really love this A6 size. So yeah, I guess you'll just have to stay tuned and see what I end up deciding. And then last but not least is this Midori 10-year diary. As you can see, it's a big boy, and it honestly looks kind of like a dictionary. I think I said that in my review, but yeah, it just comes in this beautiful red shade. It also comes in a blue, I believe, but I just had a preference for the red one. And here are the 2 ribbon bookmarks. As far as I'm concerned, at this point in the year, it's been holding up pretty well. I haven't had any issues with these golden metallic parts like peeling off or coming off or anything. I guess we'll see if it does within the next 10 years. One thing to note though, the ribbon bookmark does seem to be getting frayed quite a bit already, which I'm very curious to see how it will continue to hold up. The thing is, when I do open this up, then I do just basically pull on it, which it does kind of like tug up against the paper, which I'm sure is why it's getting frayed. but we'll see if it stays intact. But yeah, my thoughts so far. I'll start off with the binding, just because when I first got it, it was extremely rounded off, and it didn't necessarily lay flat in the beginning, but I think it was at some point, like perhaps in April or May, where I finally just had to like break open the spine so that it could lay flat, because up until that point, and it was probably at this point really, because that's where it wants to open to, but up until that point, it would just kind of like close back in on itself like this, and so I would try and write in it, but then the book would just keep wanting to close back up. And so one day I did just decide to like split it open and try and like break open the binding, and it definitely scared the bejesus out of me, because it definitely made like a loud noise, like just a loud rip. But I don't notice any issues with the binding, fortunately, and hopefully it just stays that way. But it's definitely a lot easier to write in now, which I'm very thankful for. It was a real pain up until then. But yeah, my thoughts on the paper so far. I have no complaints. It's been writing smoothly. I've really only used one pen on it so far, which is this Zebra Sarasa Vintage in the red-black shade, I believe. So I talked about this when I reviewed this journal, that because there are 10 of the Zebra Sarasa Vintage colors, and I absolutely love these gel pens, then I figured that I would just use a different color each year, since there are 10 years and there are 10 of these. So yeah, I've basically just been writing on this top part every single day ever since the beginning of the year, and that's all that I've been doing in this journal so far, is just coming in at the end of every single day and just writing down a few things that happened. And it really only takes about like a minute or two to fill in. I don't find that it's very tedious or that it takes too long. It's just been really nice to reflect back on the day for a couple of minutes and just jot something down quickly before bed. Unsurprisingly, I have no complaints. I guess I'm just easy to please, and I'm not much of a complainer, so everything's been working well, which is all I can really ask for. So I don't really have any like juicy or controversial things to say about any of these planners or journals. I just am really happy with them, and I'm very impressed. And then I'll also just quickly go over the journal that I've started for my long form journaling. I definitely won't flip through this just because there is some pretty private stuff in there, but even just from a few weeks ago of me setting this up, I'm already like halfway done with it. So I might be setting up a brand new journal soon already. But yeah, I've just been really loving this so far. The paper has been quite nice. I've mainly just been using fountain pens in it, and I think that it shows like the shimmer and the sheening and shading like pretty nicely so far. So it's definitely not Tomoe River paper. I don't know what type of paper it is, but it's good enough, and it's definitely just nice to have a separate journal to write all my deepest, darkest thoughts in. Well, that is it for my mid-year review. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it and found it somewhat interesting or entertaining. Hopefully it wasn't too boring or dragging on for too long. Let me know how your planners have been working out for you this year, and if you are planning on making any changes for the second half of the year, or if everything's been working out well. I would love to know. Let me know what planners you've been using, or let me know if you have any questions or comments about any of the stuff that I talked about today. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.